So we had some more elections this week. They were in various states, including Virginia, South Carolina, Nevada, and some others. So the good news is that 4 or maybe even 5, because I think there was an update on one of these elections, our Revolution candidates won. And that's always a good thing. You know, my general breakdown is that anytime you see an Our Revolution back candidate win, it's good. Anytime you see a PCCC back candidate win, it's good. Anytime you see a Working Families Party back candidate win, it's good. Of course, a Justice Democrat back candidate, that's good. Democratic Socialist back, that's good. So the dividing lines are clear. And then if you see anybody who's backed by, Third Way or No Labels or the New Democrats, those are the groups where, or the DCCC, those are the groups where it's like, that's when the bad Democrats won. The corporatists, the establishment people, the neoliberals. So there were plenty of Our Revolution victories, which is absolutely wonderful. The bad news, and unfortunately we've gotten too many examples of this, whether it be with Paul Jean Swearingen or Allison Hartson or what have you. The bad news is that Amy Vilela lost to Steven Horsford. Now, he finished with 62% of the vote, and Vilela came in third with 9%. So yet again, here we are in the same boat that we find ourselves after other prominent races. Again, Justice Democrats in Our Revolution are winning about 50% of their races, but too often we get, some of the more prominent races where we get beat. And we always have to go back to the drawing board and say, well, how and why did this happen? And the sad reality of the situation is that it's almost always because of what we knew it would be in the first place, which is money, which is corruption. I mean, Amy ran a fantastic campaign, an inspiring campaign. She really worked her butt off, and she put front and center all the issues that mattered. And in the end, the corporatists were able to take her out. But as she said, listen, this isn't the end, this is just the beginning. And I want to give her a hell of a lot of credit because this is through no fault of her own that she lost. So let's take a look at what The Intercept says about this, because this is telling. Horsford has sought to buttress his credibility on healthcare by vowing to not take any money from the pharmaceutical industry during this bid for Congress. The National Republican Congressional Committee was quick to pounce on him, pointing out he received over $70,000 from the industry during his previous tenure in Congress. You can read the Pfizer Political Action Committee's annual report listing Horsford as a Democrat they gave to here. But the NRCC's missive overlooked the reality that swearing off industry PAC money does not always mean that the funds don't still find their way into a campaign. Drug companies are among the biggest patrons of politicians, and many of the committees that have given to Horsford are partially financed by the drug industry. But it is much harder politically for a candidate to refuse that money. The Congressional Black Caucus PAC, for instance, gave Horsford $5,000. That PAC, where Horsford previously sat on the board, is partially financed by Amgen, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, and Merck. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus Bold PAC, which also gave Horsford $5,000, is partially financed by Amgen and AstraZeneca. Bridge PAC, associated with South Carolina Congressperson and Democratic Whip James Clyburn, also gave Horsford $5,000. It is partially financed by Abbott Laboratories, Eli Lilly, and Pfizer. So when The Intercept asked about drug industry money coming in through other committees, Horsford's campaign clarified, and I'm not kidding about this, here's what they said, quote, Horsford will not take any direct contributions from the pharmaceutical industry. So listen, man, the establishment is adapting, and they're changing on the surface level in order to try to win these races. See, and Amy's put in a position where if she comes out and says, I don't think that Horsford should take any money from the Congressional Black Caucus PAC, what's the response going to be from the corporatists? You know it, I know it. They're going to say, racist. Racist. How dare you, racist. You don't want them to take money from the Congressional Black Caucus PAC? Why? I mean, to me, that sounds pretty racist. And, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Bold PAC, I mean, the way they do these clever little tricks, they try to put you in a corner if you're the progressive candidate and make you look unhinged and make you look racist if you come out against them being corrupted by big money. And listen, man, it's really grotesque that these are the dirty tricks they go to. And oftentimes now we see they'll just lie and be like, oh yeah, I'm for Medicare for all. And usually in the wording, there's a little bit of a giveaway. Like, I'm open to the idea of universal health care, and at some point down the road, we can, look into Medicare for all. It's a viable option. Something like that. And it's always, mealy-mouthed nonsense, beating around the bush, and not being direct because you want to give yourself the wiggle room to, in the future, be like, oh, did I say that? I didn't mean that. What I meant was universal health care of some form or another, maybe like a public option, but you got to keep the for-profit health insurance companies intact because they also donate to me. And this is what they do, man. So you just need to understand that we're dealing with dishonest opponents here. And they lie, and they do take the big money in a variety of ways. And then when they get caught, they come up with other clever tricks to try to wiggle their way out of it. So, yet again, we're faced with a situation, just like with Paula Jean Swearengin, just like with Allison Hartson. I think Amy Vilela was ultimately drowned out by big money. And she fought her heart out. And remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes a lot of time to win these races. I think it's kind of amazing that we even have a 50% success rate with these progressive candidates the first time around. But obviously in the long run, the idea is to get a left-wing, populist left supermajority in Congress. And that's a hard thing to do when it's an unfair fight. They show up with a gun, we show up with a knife. And listen, it's a matter of principle. We can't take corporate PAC money because that corrupts the candidates by its very nature. You could even be a good person and be corrupted in that way because it's just the nature of the system. So really, one of the biggest things is we're going to have to fight to get private money out of the system and do clean elections by law, because I think that's really the only way that in the long run we even out the playing field. Because again, if you gave everybody some sort of a test and you went issue for issue with them, and you said, okay, so here are your beliefs according to you, and this is the candidate you're best suited for. Across the board, it would have been all these great candidates: Paula Jean Swearengin, Allison Hartson, Amy Vilela. So the way the system works, it's obviously built with big money and corruption and a filtration process, which basically eliminates the non-corrupt. So, but now we're aware of the problem and we know what the solutions are. So in my estimation, we obviously have to get the money out of the system, but until that point, we just need to overwhelm them with numbers. Because, in a weird way, that's kind of what happened with Trump on the Republican side, so I don't see why it can't happen on the Democratic side. And like I already pointed out, about 50% of the races, it has happened. It's just that typically, the lower the office, the more likely it is the better candidate actually wins, because the lower the office, the less money gets poured into it, so the less corruption there is. The bigger the office, whether it's a House race or whether it's a Senate race, by the time you get to the Senate, it's really hard to get the better candidate to win. But the establishment depends on us giving up, so we have to promise to never give up. Because the second we do that, they win even more seats, and they do even better, and they fuck our lives over even more. So even though it's hard, and even though it's an unfair fight, we have to keep moving forward.